closer you got to me, the faster I try to leave. Like a mirage, like a mirage. The scars that you don't let keep on my arms, I appear empty. Like a mirage, like a mirage.
evening, SRA Nation, and welcome to Season 14. Once you've got qualifying, then the main 1 hour race. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sim Racing Alliance. And this is where it all counts. As all eyes go to the light, and we are racing.
He brakes late, almost takes out the car ahead of him.
He's getting a tow, a flash.
Argy right on the exit, rear end squiggle. Who's going to get the move done here around the outside?
Oh, dang!
Byron ran it so shallow there, and this has become a 4-car battle. Game of inches as the BMW is in the paint.
And we're off and away for SRA.
That is right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sim Racing Alliance GT3 Team Series. I'm your host, Philip Innes-Mueller, coming at you live. This is Round 5, Week 5 at the Hungaroring. You're tuned into the Division 1 stream. Thank you all for being here. I am joined in the booth, as usual, by my co-commentator, Ilpo Ruotsalainen. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here. If you are, in fact, here to say hello to the good folks at home. All right, surprise, he's in the chat, he's on the screen, but he's eating dinner. So I will do this pre-show myself while we wait for all of the drivers to get into the server and get this party started. We've got a whole lot of talking to get through. Let's get underway, starting off with the standings page. So midpoint of the season, 4 races down, 4 to go. Your championship leader, Tiago Dinarte, 300 points on the board, followed closely behind by Michael Menning, 294 points. But the big drama here, Michael Menning missing last week's race, leaving him with 0 drop points, which means if he has any sort of championship aspirations, championship hopes, Michael Menning has to be present and has to be flawless for the rest of this season, whereas Tiago has 80 drop points, which is, you know, what, a 4th place, 5th place? He has a little bit of wiggle room. If he has a bad race, he can recover, has a little bit more breathing room to fend off the challenge of Michael Menning, Andrew Rados, Jeremy Mercer, our silver leader, Joris Butkus. You see there on your screen, number 14 position overall, 156 points. A decent, not that high of a lead over Eric Marecki, 150 points. Close on his heels, P2 silver. That is going to be a tight battle going all the way down to the end, and we will keep an eye on that battle as this race progresses. 3rd place silver, Joel Klaus, a little bit farther behind, 123 points, but definitely still mathematically in the hunt, and we'll keep an eye on him as well. Looking at the team standings, as always, and as it has been this whole season, the new World Sim Racing daddies of Kevin Blanchette and Andrew Rados. Top of the board, 509 points over the Lexus team of Anton Rushevich and Omar Escorcia, the I'm talking about in it OBDA team. Got another Lexus team 3rd place, the Ferrari 488 team, Jeremy Mercer, Jordan Nixon hanging out in 4th place. They are, I'm going to call them a fan favorite. I love the car, I love the guys, hoping for nothing but the best for them. As I mentioned previously, we are indeed in Hungary. It is a beautiful, bright, sunny day, a little hot. It'll be interesting to see how our D1 drivers manage the tire wear in these conditions. This is a very low speed, very high downforce, tight and twisty track. It'll be interesting to see which drivers, which cars have the advantage. We are kicking it straight over to the race scene because qualifying has in fact started. Let me click through a couple of buttons here. See if I can get you some times on the board. We can't yet. Question? So leading the way, this is our silver. So the first 10 minutes of this silver session, we will be watching our silver drivers competing for their times. Right now we got Doug on screen leading the way in that beautiful Gulf liveried Lexus. As we try to figure out what the heck is going on with the HUD, can I just randomly click a button and make it appear? I don't know. Lap time enabled? Confirm? Back? Huh. This is going to be a weird one, eh, boys? Hey, there it is. All right, we got times on screen. We got Doug leading the way. Let us check out. So, one thing I always like to do is take a look at the hot lap leaderboards from the practice servers, right? So our top D1 silver driver on the practice leaderboard, we're going to click it over. If we can find his name, here we go, Mr. Eric Marecki in that beautiful Madhouse Racing McLaren. Had the best time in practice, 142.682. So just, something to keep an eye on. Obviously, this first lap, as we come around on our first flying lap, Douglas leading the way across the line. Number 64, is that Mr. Joel Moffitt, the second across the line, with a healthy gap in front. I mean, I don't think you're going to catch up that much time to Doug, but that's okay. Joel Moffitt charging ahead in that beautiful, the 296 Ferrari, it's a controversial car. Some people say, oh, it's not as good looking as the 488. I'm a fan of this car, and I'm a fan of this livery as well, that beautiful red and yellow Le Mans livery inspired 296. Just getting our tires warmed up, getting everything up to temperature. Might as well click onto some of our Porsche boys. This is Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan in that 992 Porsche, that Leighton House. I like the teal blue livery. It's a good looking livery. As we're doing our outlaps, giving a big shout out in the chat, we've got Coach Jeffries, the man, the myth, the legend. It's Coach. Hey, Coach, the prediction series, it's alive and well. What do we got? What are we thinking for this D1 race? I don't want to give away my predictions just yet, but I'd love to get your input on who you're rooting for in this race. We've got Douglas Mitchell coming around this tight third sector. This will be the one to keep an eye on as the race progresses, really abusing those tires. Doug now putting the power down and getting off to his first flying lap. Well, that was his first warm-up lap, a 144.790. That's going to come way down. Trust me about that. I mean, really, even though, like I said, it's a hot day. I think it's 25 or 26 degrees on the ambient. So eventually the tires will be turning into black licorice. But for this first lap, a 143.62 from Eric Marecki, just based off of the practice times, they're still about a second off. Now we're getting the party started, now that everything is up to temperature. Right behind him, we had another McLaren, Andrew Wilson, in the McDonald's. So this is the Macca's Macca McLaren, the number 414 car, hanging out in P2 right now, less than a tenth behind Eric Marecki. Joris Butkus, our overall silver leader, hanging out P3 on his first flying lap. These are good banker laps, but these are going to come tumbling down as the session goes. One of the few BMWs on the field, Ghost Rider Racing BMW of Guy Manperson. That subtle but kingly purple and gold livery. Looking fantastic out on track right now. Wilson Fernandez, as we mentioned, obviously this is the season where the livery theme is real-life racing. The primer gray being, of course, the original, the first, and always potentially the last livery that everybody's project car will rock. I remember in my wilder days, hanging out up in the canyons, hanging out with the crazy kids at 2 a.m, doing runs up and down the hill. This was what you would paint your car. You're gonna get a little gravel on you. You might get a little off into the weeds. Why waste money on a good paint job when you can just rock the classic primer gray? So Eric Marecki crossing the line, his second flying lap, only a 1:43.010. Nobody yet in the 42s, expecting those times still to come down a bit. The track is already optimum, so I'm not having any concerns about, oh, the silvers are going to be stuck on a fast track and they're going to be slower. No, this should be a fair and level playing field for all of our competitors. Eric Marecki now navigating this tough kink over the hill, keeping the car nice and tidy through there. I personally always get a little bit of oversteer coming up and over that crest, but maybe that's because I'm driving the Nissan, and that car just feels like it's on ice at all times. Our D2 champion from last season, Mr. Arced, in the other BMW. I believe he is teammate-less, just rocking that. He's the Arced team. Mr. Arced on the Arced team, hanging out in P10 right now, right behind Mr. Guy Manperson, less than a tenth separating the two BMWs. So a decent result for him, getting a lot of curb on the inside second part of that curb that will impact his drive into this third sector, perhaps. I know that's not the best way, at least for the Nissan, to take that chicane. You don't want to take too much of that pyramid on the inside. You either got to get all the way over it to the left, or you kind of have to avoid it. Hitting it head on like that, not the way to go. We're looking on board Andrew Wilson as he comes around this final corner. A huge improvement on the Delta. Not enough for provisional pole, but definitely enough for P2. A 1:43.240 for the Macca of Andrew Wilson. Fantastic result for him. 3 minutes now left in this session for the silver drivers. That would be, I'm going to call it 2 laps left for these drivers. So hoping for a little bit out of them. Marecki unable to improve thus far. Checking race control, seeing we've got Mr. Kurt LeMay as he navigates this final turn. A big improvement for him as well. Keeps it within the lines, keeps it valid, and gets a nice jump up. P7 for Mr. Kurt LeMay in the FAF team Motorsports. Porsche 992, so well done to him. Still, of course, time for maybe only 2 more laps. 2 more laps for sure. We've got Eric Marecki in Sector 2 right now, and about 2/10 up on the Delta. Plenty of time ahead, not going to get held up by traffic at all, so we're going to stay on board. Eric Marecki, if he can keep this lap valid, he can get a good boost. I mean, he's already in provisional pole, but he's going to put a lot of distance between himself and his fellow silver competitors. Second to last turn, still about 2/10 on the board, maybe a quarter of a second, keeping it nice over that pit entry. And as he comes around the final turn, staying within the lines. Oh, that was close to track limits. He lost a little bit of drive because of how wide he went. He did improve to a 1:42.872, but lost about not quite a tenth. I'm going to call it a half a tenth because maybe got on the power a little bit too early, drifted a little bit wide, and couldn't get full acceleration out of that final turn. 1 more lap to go, so maybe still another improvement coming from him. Guy Manperson, in the meantime, had gotten himself up into P2, and with a slight improvement on the board, not enough to even come close to challenging Marecki. Still a quarter of a second, 0.263 seconds, separating P1 and 2. Marecki is putting on an absolute clinic in qualifying for these silver drivers right now. Looking down the board, we got Joel Moffitt on a little bit of improvement, doing well to mount those curbs through the chicane, definitely running a super high ride height on that 296 Ferrari. He's got Daddy Doug ahead of him, so probably not close enough to get any sort of slipstream, but still a decent gap. And as he tries to make his way through this final sector, he lost a little bit of time in Sector 2. Trying to get if he can get that 10th, if he can get a little bit of time back, he'd be able to pip Andrew Wilson for P4. This will be his final flying lap. 10 minutes on the board is when the gold drivers will be going out. Joel Moffitt navigating that final turn, only 200ths on the board, not going to be enough to make any sort of improvement. Joel Moffitt, P5 at best. And I'm not seeing, so Jack Krause, really the last driver left on track with enough of a delta to make an improvement. Potentially Andrew Carpenter behind him as well. But of the top drivers, so Marecki, Manperson, Butkus, and Wilson have all completed their laps or are not improving. So Marecki, Manperson, Butkus, P1 through 3 of the silver drivers. Jack Krause a couple tenths up on his delta, maybe hoping to steal P14 away from Brian Anderson if he could keep it together through the last turn over the line. And no, P15 all that he can manage. Austin Carpenter, though, across the line, barely misses out on P15, a hundredth of a second, 0.012 separating himself and Jack Krause. So Peter O'Brien leading the Golds, and as they make their way around on their kind of warm-up and sighting lap, I'm going to give a pop quiz to everybody in the chat. I see we got a couple people in the chat. Sound off if you're there. So we've had 3 different race winners in our first 4 races. We had Michael Menning, obviously Paul Ricard, that shock performance in the non-Evo McLaren 720. We had Thiago Dinarte in the Bentley, taking rounds 2 and 3, Nürburgring and Barcelona. Then, of course, we had Andrew Rados winning our race at Donington in the wet last week. But hey, does anybody out there know pole position winners? We've had 2 in 4 races. Michael Menning took pole in Barcelona, but only one man. This man. No, not this man. The other man. Where is he? This man. Renato Dornelles. He took pole in 3 races, 3 out of 4 races. Paul Ricard, Nürburgring, and wet Donington. This man, Renato Dornelles, in the McLaren, absolutely dominating the qualifying sessions thus far in D1. And I don't know about you guys, but this guy is my personal favorite, not only to take pole again, no commentator curse, I'm expecting a strong qualifying result, but I'm also expecting a strong race result. If you remember, he was leading the way up until the midway pit stop of last race, where P2 Andrew Rados, he went for the undercut, he pit before Dornelles, and Dornelles just kind of didn't react to the undercut. It was 2 or 3 laps later where he finally comes in, and by that time, Rados had kind of made up the time on track, taken the lead, and that was how the win last race was decided. So Dornelles, I got to imagine he's going to be learning from his mistakes. He knows what to do strategy-wise in this race, and Renato Dornelles, 3 poles, and he is absolutely due for a race win. I'm believing in this man. We've got our first warm-up laps coming across the line. We got Jeremy Mercer, a 143.510. Peter O'Brien, a 143.775. Taking a look at the practice leaderboards. Of course, I always like to reference these times. So, before, if you would have asked me this question an hour ago, it would have been Renato Dornelles with a 142.574 being the top driver on the practice leaderboards. But in the very last session, at the 11th hour, this man, in the Mustang, the restrictor Victor, Gomer Wilson, put in a 142.465, an absolutely blazing fast time. I don't know who does the bop around here, but this car, this Mustang, I have been waiting for all season. Obviously, we have the 20% restrictor, which reduces the top end speed on this Mustang car. It was a little overpowered before. I don't know, blame Kunos, but it's a little bit more balanced this season. So in response, of course, you have to then also take away a little bit of ballast. It's running negative ballast on most tracks in this series. I feel it's crazy, right? We've only got 2 Mustang drivers on this field. We got Gomer Wilson and we got his teammate Dan Cran, who I'm calling are also due for a win. If I was going to bet on anybody, it's controversial, I know, to pick the top 2 drivers on the practice leaderboard. But Gomer Wilson in the Mustang and Renato Dornelles in the McLaren, who, as I've been rambling on, already with his second flying lap, a 142.800 snipes provisional pole from Eric Marecki, and he's got time for 3 more laps. This man is absolutely on fire lately. Renato Dornelles, P1. Jeremy Mercer, it was P3, now it's P4 because Gomer Wilson putting in a 142.820. Things are getting hot here at this hot Hungaroring circuit. 4 minutes left on the clock. Dornelles from Wilson, from Marecki, from Mercer. Mercer's teammate Jordan Nixon doing well for himself, a 143.252 on the board. Definitely plenty of improvement potential for him. Got a request for a little bit more volume from the chat. Of course, I am willing to provide. Let me know how that sounds. Any improvements on the board? So Kevin Blanchette, so this is his main car. He is a Lexus main. I don't have too many nice things to say about Lexus drivers. You know, maybe they're BOP tourists. Maybe this car is overpowered because of the top end. But this man, Kevin Blanchette. All right, we are so back. I'm going to take a breather and kick over to our Jay Queasy sponsor read. Thank you all so much for hanging out there with me, and apologies. And okay, Jay Queasy, take it away.
A huge thank you to our SRA sponsors and title sponsors for supporting us here at SRA, as well as support from Documise, a modern business solution for product management. Go to documise.com to learn more today. And support from Retro Saga, a North American-based gaming company that provides accessories for your favourite classic systems, including Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, and much more. Enhance your retro gaming experience today at retrosaga.ca. And a big thank you to our affiliates, Track Racer. Experience redefined gaming with Track Racer's high-quality sim rigs and accessories. Use code SRATE at checkout to support us. Armamentario, a toolbox for ACC that will enhance your chance to win. Enjoy a fully customizable and enhanced HUD to change the way you experience ACC. AT 3D Sim Shop. Upgrade your sim racing experience today with premium 3D printed accessories featuring precision crafted magnetic shifters, sleek cable management solutions, versatile stream deck mounts, and immersive dashboard displays. Their innovative designs enhance performance and style, elevate every lap with top tier quality and craftsmanship at at3d.net. Go Setups, premium esports setups for everybody. Use our affiliate link on our Discord and take your drive to the next level. Castle and Cauldron, a home-based crafting business specialising in handmade Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts and Fairy World collectibles. Magic wands, potions, mini dioramas, wall decor, costumery, cosplay and much more. Castle and Cauldron is where crafting meets the magical. Visit facebook.com/Castle Cauldron. And from KP Concepts, your source for custom automotive renderings, graphic design, and printing. We spend countless hours making you look all good for the spectacle. Check out kpconcepts.com for more.
All right, we are so back onto the race stream, getting ready for the race start. In the meantime, while we were down, Mr. Jeremy Mercer taking pole position. I'm gonna have to click over to see if I can find the results online, because that is an absolutely shocking result. I mean, I know he's been fast. I know he's had good results so far this season. Jeremy Mercer in the 488 Ferrari taking pole position In this Week 5 race at the Hungaroring, we got Renato Dornell's P2 as expected. He's way up there. Gomer Wilson up there as well. Eric Marecki, the silver driver, hanging on to P4 overall against all of these top gold contenders. That is an excellent performance from him, putting himself way ahead of his nearest silver competitor, Guy Manperson. As we come around this final corner, crawling up to the line, waiting for those red lights to go off, the green flag to wave, and away we go. 60 minutes on the clock. Renato Dornell's getting a huge jump, immediately taking P1 away from Jeremy Mercer, who was maybe a little bit back in his box, maybe caught lacking, but either way, Renato Dornell's easily up into P1 even before the first turn. Gomer Wilson, you saw trying to muscle his way up. We had that's Guy Manperson in the back, started P8 all the way down into P18 now. Guy Manperson losing out huge. You saw him slightly off track there after the first turn. Gomer Wilson side by side now with Marecki, who's trying to take P3. You see Nixon and Dan Cran close behind, ready to pick up the pieces. Marecki shoots his way up into P3. Gomer Wilson demoted into P4 in the meantime. We've got Nixon from Cran from Flamger in the Audi P7. He started P9, but he made a couple spots up side by side. That's Blanchette on Rados. No, side by side, that's Blanchette on Peter O'Brien in the Nissan. I apologize. Jeff Spangler, P11. A little bit of drama back. This is Mr. Sir in the other non-Evo 720 McLaren. Little hip check. That's Thiago Dinarte, who maintains the position. That's P14. Dom Durance, seeing the opportunity, gets himself up ahead of Mr. Sir. It is all kicking off. A little bit of Rubbin is racing ahead, but everybody keeping it nice and clean overall through this first flying lap. So Dornell's trying to make a little bit of a break for it. The gap up at the front, you see on your screen already 0.7 seconds between P1 and P2, a further 1.5 seconds, while Marecki was kind of battling with Gomer Wilson behind. Jeremy Mercer took the opportunity to just kind of make a break for it. These top two drivers, Dornell's and Mercer's, trying to run away with the first half of this race. Tight battles. We got Dan Cran on Nixon.
So we had a couple of...
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a couple of potentially important things happen during the lap. The Manperson going off and losing many positions is potentially quite important for the championship.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Dunham had an incident on lap 1 and fell way off the pack.
So yeah, as Ilpo said, well, so Manperson, P7 right now in silver. Maybe not quite in it, but we'll keep an eye on him either way. We've got Butkus, off track in Sector 2. We're going to hit a quick replay. So he was battling side by side with Kevin Blanchette, who got a bad run out of the chicane, but as they go side by side into this left-hander, right-hander, we didn't get a full view of it, but Blanchette looked to set up a little bit too far to the left and maybe just didn't leave the space for Butkus, who is now down in P14, well behind his championship rival, Eric Marecki, who is just enjoying himself a nice and quiet P3 right now.
Mr. Sir also got involved in some kind of incident on that lap.
Oof.
And also, even before the race started, Calvin Lau, I think he disconnected. He had to start from last place despite qualifying a little bit higher.
Oh, Guy Manperson, from bad to worse, just struggling with traffic. 3 wide now coming into turn 2. This is Queso, Manperson, Blanchette. Blanchette backing out and giving space for Queso and Manperson to still go side by side. They're keeping it together. This left-hand kink, though, is trouble. Oh man, Person is just all going wrong for him, but he gets ahead of Queso. Planchette now the opportunist, taking the position away as well. This is a battle for P15, 16, and 17, where Queso currently resides. Dornell's up at the front. The gap has grown to 1 second. Back to Jeremy Mercer, you see represented visually there, who has himself a 2-second gap to Eric Marecki behind. Tight fights at the back though. This is Andrew Wilson, P19, right behind Kurt LeMay. We've got Fernandez in the McLaren behind. I guess it must be said, we don't have a Michael Menning on track right now. I don't know if anybody cares about the Michael Menning show. He is perhaps one of the fastest drivers in this league, and despite being P2 in the overall standings right now with 2 races missed in a row, Michael Menning, it might be too early to throw in the towel, maybe not, but I think this is kind of it for his championship hopes. Thiago Dinarte is our overall points leader. He's got 80 drop points, which makes this current result of P10. It would be his drop race, but he's got plenty of time, 54 minutes left on the clock to maybe make a little bit of ground up on this pack. The gap ahead, 3.4 seconds to Jeff Spangler. You see it there. You barely see him on the horizon. I didn't catch, so I'm going to go back over here to my web browser and see that Thiago Dinarte only qualified P15. So with that in mind, P10 now, he's already gained 5 positions. He's got clear air ahead to maybe make up a little bit of ground. Not the best qualifying result for Thiago Dinarte. Jeremy Mercier, he had a pole lap of 142.607. So yeah, decent stuff out of these the best of the best SRA drivers. Checking in at the back of the field. Oh, we've got another problem for Mr. Sir. As Ilpo mentioned, he had perhaps another little incident on lap 1 or 2, I believe, and just kind of driving all by himself here, coming now into the chicane in Sector 2. I don't know. Okay. Not sure what happened to the replay there. I thought I put it a little bit of extra time on the replay. Apologies for the production truck not hitting the right buttons at the right time. We'll get the next one, I promise. But either way, Mr. Sir has returned to garage and just perhaps not feeling that non-Evo spec of the McLaren. Is that another one of those cars, Ilpo, where in order to be fast, you have to drive it on 0 TC?
I think you can potentially use some TC in some situations, but yeah, generally all the older cars need to run with TC off because the TC in those is not quite as sophisticated as the newer ones.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of madman would willingly choose a car like that, but I mean, hey, if Menning could make it fast, then more power to him. I personally love my Ferrari 296, where I can drive a TC5 and TC6 and get away with just having a light switch for a throttle pedal. Just gas on, gas off, gas on, gas off. No problem.
So the biggest winner so far is Mitchell, who is 11 positions up from where he started.
11. So Daddy Doug, so he's at the end of the qualifying session, P last, 31st with a 144.635, but maybe just managing to manage the traffic a bit better than everybody else. There was a little bit of chaos that maybe he took advantage of. P19 right now for Doug. The Doug train is already forming. All aboard this Gulf Lexus livery. Flamger in the Audi. Maybe the best result of the season so far for him. He struggled a bit. I think this is another one of those 0 TC crazy cars. Pretty super high ride heights. We saw him talking about earlier in the chat, just to kind of manage some of the bumps and those big pyramids on the chicane, really bouncing around. You saw over the left-hand kink there over the hill. The suspension on that Audi just trying to adjust for the weight shift, but doing quite well for himself. P7 and right up behind Dan Cran, mounting those curbs, getting the power down, and yeah, staying hot on the tail of that Ford Mustang. Guy man person.
Another topic that we might need to consider on this track is track limits. We saw quite a few drivers going wide on corner exits on laps 1 and 2, potentially burning up those crucial speed tokens early, which you wouldn't normally want to do, but sometimes you just have to.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. In my practice personally, you go wide everywhere. That left-hand kink at the start of Sector 2 is a good candidate. Everything, actually, through Sector 2. That flowy, left, right. This track makes it a little too easy, I think, to go off track and maintain speed. We've got arced right up behind Arjun in the Porsche. This is a battle for P20 and 21 on track. BMW right up behind the Porsche. This straight really not long enough to get a good overlap, even if you did have the speed advantage. I don't know. Speaking of speed tokens,
say the Porsche brakes. Yep, I would say the Porsche brakes are worth more than the top speed here. There's so many heavy braking zones and slow corners. Having that extra little bit on the brakes is just so valuable.
Yeah, I mean, if we were gonna identify the best overtaking opportunity for these drivers, I mean, is it turn 1? Is it the third to last, that sharp right-hander?
I would say it depends on what the car matchup is, because if you have a car that is like, if the car you're trying to overtake is not very good at accelerating out from the final corner, then turn 1 is a very good opportunity. But against some cars, like certain cars are just very bad at accelerating out from that corner, so if you're in one of those and the guy in front is in a Porsche, well, good luck. That's not gonna work out.
Yeah, perhaps one of the best on acceleration. We're watching the Nissan ahead of Peter O'Brien. Maybe not the best on top end, but you see there on corner exit just putting the power down and walking away from the almighty Lexus. And Jeff Spangler into the braking zone of turn 1, just absolutely nothing doing there on the brakes. The position is safe thus far for Peter O'Brien. Got Durant's on Butkus. Super tight battle on track. Less than a tenth separating these drivers. And it was because it looks like Dom Durant's had a little bit of an issue starting the last lap. He was ahead, actually, of Butkus. We must have missed a move there. Jurentis Butkus now at the start of this next lap up into P12 over Danny Durant's. Back up at the front, Dornell's just storming away with this race. The gap now 2.7 seconds to P2. Jeremy Mercer running a lonely race. The gap behind still about 2 seconds, so not under threat himself, but unable to keep up with the super fast McLaren of Renato Dornell's. Eric Marecki has now broken the slipstream of Gomer Wilson, off to a little bit of a lonely third place. Our silver driver, the silver driver in P3. You'll love to see it. Gomer Wilson under threat a little bit from Jordan Nixon. The gap less than a second with the other Mustang of Dan Cran behind. This is the battle on track for positions 4, 5, and 6. Things getting a little bit more spread out as time goes on. Durant's on Butkus, perhaps the closest battle on track besides Spangler and O'Brien, which we saw, going into turn 1. That Nissan is pretty safe and sound from any sort of threat from the Lexus behind. Denarte, we saw earlier. Last we checked in with him, I believe, if memory serves, the gap ahead to Spangler was 3.6 seconds, and as you see on your screen here, 1.725 as they cross the start-finish line. It's gone up a little bit. It's about 1.9 seconds, 1.8 on your screen there. But either way, Thiago Denarte, because perhaps O'Brien and Spangler are scrapping it up ahead, Denarte's coming. He will definitely be a force to be reckoned with at the end of this race, and he's bringing the Lexus of Andrew Rados with him. So keep an eye on P10 Thiago Denarte. Got a couple of drivers already coming into the pits. We've got Arct and LeMay, maybe going for a little bit of an undercut on some of their nearest on-track competitors. Watch out though, this is a pretty short track. At the rate Dornell's is going, they might be under threat of some blue flag being waved in their direction in the near future.
Arct with the stop and go for speeding into pits, and he also had a very slow pit stop for a non-repair stop.
And Fernandez as well with a stop-go 30. So this must be him serving it now. Arced. You gotta get on the pit limiter button, my dude. That is unfortunate from our D2 champion from last season. That is not the way you want to see it. It's okay. There's 3 races left in the season. I believe in this man to put up a strong performance. Dan Cran right up behind Nixon, who has lost a little bit of ground. We see the gap from P4 to P5 has stretched to about 1.2 seconds as they cross the line here at the start of Sector 2. So perhaps Nixon just struggling to keep up with Gomer Wilson, and especially with the threat of Dan Cran in the Mustang behind. Jordan Nixon gonna have to see what he can do. 43 minutes left on the clock. This is about the time we're going to start thinking about pit strategy. Speak of the devil, Jeff Spangler, we saw unable to overtake the Nissan of Peter O'Brien on track, so he says 43 minutes on the clock is the perfect time for me to come in and attempt a little bit of an undercut. Going to have to see if Peter responds to this threat, or if she's going to pull or Darnell's and just say, no, I'll let you have that position on track. Second to last turn.
So I did check on the
Go ahead.
championship points, and this will be a huge upset for the Silver Drivers' Championship if Marecki finishes in, let's say, roughly top 5, and Butkus is only past top 10. That will pretty much flip the script. Right now they are very close in standings, but
six
would
points only,
change
right?
the picture. Well, it depends on if you count the top round, but let's say less than 10 points.
Less than 10 points separating these two drivers, but Marecki on for a huge result. Peter O'Brien, we saw, did not opt to respond to the undercut of Jeff Spangler, staying out for at least one more lap. I don't know, man. I am not feeling the overcut either in this series with these drivers, in this game at all. Is the overcut ever the right choice to make?
Well, it could be sometimes, but especially on a track where overtaking is extremely difficult, I think reacting to the undercut would be the safer choice.
Definitely. So Thiago Denarte on the board showing P9 right now before pit stops has reduced the gap ahead. Only 1.3 seconds the gap between O'Brien and Denarte, so definitely still on a charge, definitely still a lot of pace left in that Bentley. As we come around...
Very critically for Spangler's undercut. He had a bad pit stop. His stationary time is almost 3 seconds longer than minimum, so I believe he might have missed his pit box slightly.
Yeah, sometimes this game, oh no, I missed my box by 1 foot, so you're gonna teleport me backwards before picking me up? I don't know, it's a little tough. Andrew Rado still right up behind Dinarte, just happy to be kind of pulled along as Dinarte makes his charge up the field. Andrew Rados, the new World Sim Racing Daddy's Lexus with that beautiful Chester Cheetos livery, just happy to kind of be along for the ride for now. 40 minutes left on the clock. We've got Mr. Douglas Mitchell coming in for his 1 mandatory stop for tires. We'll have to see how that shakes out versus some of the drivers he was competing against. Mr. Jordan Nixon, still less than a second actually, so we saw him get dropped a little bit by Gomer Wilson. Now the gap, you see it on screen, super close, 0.6 of a second only separating Gomer Wilson and Jordan Nixon, well within slipstream range. As we come onto this, is it even long enough to call it a back straight here at the start of Sector 3? But either way, P5 Jordan Nixon, he found a little bit of pace. Maybe he made a mistake earlier on and he's corrected that. And yeah, that 488 Ferrari looking good.
Dinarte also made a small mistake and Rados got right up to him.
Ooh, okay. Let's head on to the Peter O'Brien cam again, electing not to pit. 39 minutes left on the board. So looking at, so Jeff Spangler, this is about the time where we would start looking at the last laps of these drivers. If I can find it.
Rados in the pit.
Rados in the pit. So the last lap for Jeff Spangler, a 144.050, whereas Peter O'Brien, last lap 144.452 on those older tires, 0.4 of a second slower on just that one lap alone. I mean, whereas you saw the gap between the two drivers, it was less than a second. After 2 or 3 laps, if this kind of pace deficiency, I would call it, you can't use the word deficient. There's nothing deficient about Peter O'Brien's driving right now, but the tires, if they don't have the pace, this is going to be a position lost for Peter O'Brien and perhaps even Thiago Dinarte, who is 1 second behind O'Brien. Got a driver exiting the pits ahead of Spangler. That is Andrew Rados just exiting the pits now and holds the position. Wow, that was a tight one. So that is now an on-track battle for position between the two Lexus drivers. Oh, a little bit of a tap. Andrew Rados, perhaps on colder tires, not able to maintain the same minimum apex speed as Jeff Spangler, and just getting a little hello, welcome back to this race. So that was...
That is actually quite significant jump from Rados. If I am correct, he was quite far behind Spangler before the pit stops.
So he was behind Dinarte, right?
Yes.
And so perhaps, as you said,
Spangler
that was Spangler...
the highest Lexus on the field.
And that was with that longer pit stop time, that extra 3 seconds stationary. Perhaps all it took for Andrew Rados to make that overtake ahead of Spangler. In the meantime, Dinarte and O'Brien into the pits, so we're going to have to keep an eye on both Rados and Spangler, see where they come out in relation to the two drivers that are in the pits, Manperson and Wilson, and Queso as well in the pits. Dornell's happy to just keep on trucking. So his last lap, a 143.905, still much faster than everybody else on track. The only driver of the ones who have yet to pit in the 143s. Jeff Spangler, his last lap, a 143, it was a 143.7, just crosses the line now, a 145.7. Perhaps getting a little held up by Rados there. Oh no, it's a disaster. Peter O'Brien. Stop, go 30 penalty. speeding in the pit lane. The top 10 dreams of the Nissan have been dashed. Oh, that is a heartbreaker. You hate to see it. I love the car. I love watching Peter drive it, but wow, it F's in the chat for the Nissan at this moment. Thiago Dinarte exited the pits right behind, and so there you see the overcut. I was talking it down, but Dinarte maintains the position over Rados, maintains the position over Spangler, and now Thiago Dinarte, with Peter O'Brien ahead, having a penalty. This is going to be another 2 positions for the driver who started in 15th after qualifying. So well done to Dinarte, and keep up the good work. This race is not over yet. 35 minutes left on the clock.
Dinarte's pit lane time from pit entry to pit exit is the best out of Dinarte, Rados, and Spangler, so it's not surprising he's
Nailed
maintained
it.
the gap.
Yep.
And Spangler's slightly slow stationary time has become extremely expensive for him. I think he would be in front of Dinarte without that.
Yeah, he should be ahead of both of these drivers. The gap from now P12 to what will now be P14 as Jeff Spangler drives past Peter O'Brien. Yeah, it's less than 3 seconds, which is about that gap that you were mentioning. Dornell's keeping on, still just driving fast out on track, not pitting yet. Jeremy Mercer will come in for his 1 mandatory tire stop. 34 minutes left on the clock in this race. Eric Marecki as well, electing to do his 1 mandatory pit stop. Gomer Wilson as well, coming in to do his 1 mandatory pit stop. Dan Cran stays out on track, will inherit P2 for the meantime, or in the meantime, right behind Dornell's. So this is actually now a really tight on-track battle. So we've got Tim Flamger showing on screen P8, Thiago Dinarte 4/10 of a second behind him, Andrew Rados another 4/10 of a second behind Dinarte, and Jeff Spangler a little bit further back, but always a threat that you have to keep an eye on. So this is P8 through 11. Super tight on-track battle. We'll have to see where Gomer Wilson comes out of the pits in relation to them. Dinarte.
Hunter is on cold tires. This is his out lap.
Okay. I mean, by the end of the lap, you got to feel they've come up to temp a little bit and maybe not as much trouble.
I think you need like a lap and a half on this track to get them fully up to temp.
Okay, lap and a half. So Mercer, Marecki, and Wilson now out of the pits, just ahead of Jordan Nixon, who, into the braking zone of turn 1, takes the position from Gomer Wilson. He was behind Wilson before the pit stops. So the undercut working for Jordan Nixon.
Yeah, they have almost equal pit stop times. Marecki actually had a slightly slow stop time, lost a little bit of time. I think he probably missed his pit box slightly.
Okay. Luckily, though, had enough of a gap between himself and the drivers behind to maintain the position. So now with Dornell's and Dan Cran coming into the pits, this should be the last of our drivers to perform their 1 mandatory stop for tires. Jeremy Mercer, I thought I saw a flash yellow on my screen. Just for the heck of it, we're going to do a short replay, perhaps an off-track moment, perhaps on cold tires after coming out of the pits. Nope, doing well so far. Maybe my eyes deceive me. I could have sworn I saw number 37 with a yellow flag next to their number, but nope, doing well. Okay, so as Dornell's will now be completing his pit stop, Jeremy Mercer coming around the bend. We see Dornell's leaving the pits, plenty of space between himself and the Ferrari behind. This is Dan Cran, who will be overtaken by both Mercer and Marecki and Nixon and his teammate Gomer Wilson. So Dan Cran maintaining position. He did come into the pits behind the Ferrari and the Mustang of his teammate, so nothing changed there for Dan Cran. Now 30 minutes left on the clock. The order has been confirmed. We've got Dornells from Mercer, P2, 5.4 seconds. 5.0 on your screen there, the gap. Marecki another 4.4 behind. From Nixon, P4, Gomer Wilson, P5, Dan Cran, Tim Flamger, Tiago Dinarte. There you see P8, and Hunting for P7. He wants to take out, well, not take out, but to overtake the Audi of Tim Flamger and get himself a couple of extra points here. 30 minutes left on the clock to do it. That Bentley looking hungry.
Yeah, I think Rados made a small mistake, and that's why the gap between him and Dinarte grew, and Spangler caught up. But I think they're gonna catch back up rather quickly.
Yeah, just a couple of tenths lost. Not the hugest deal, especially if you figure the Audi of Flamger might be struggling a little bit compared to the Bentley. Got a relatively tight battle. This is Andrew Wilson on Max Simmons, the pair of McLarens battling for P13 and 14. Super tight on track battle there. We got another yellow flag. Oh no, we had Peter O'Brien, who we saw from that super good top 10 position ahead of Jeff Spangler before the pit stops, had the stop and go 30 penalty. And coming through, yep, just over the crest, a little bit loose, and if I was in a bad mood, yeah, that would be enough to set me off as well. So
I would guess he probably got his DT for track limits from that and then gave up.
Yeah, relatable. You hate to see it, but we wish them nothing but the best, and hoping to see them back. Week 6 next week, going to be a wet Laguna. We know the Nissan is good in the wet, so hey, Peter O'Brien, that's going to be the track for you. P21 and 20.
The Nissan is also very good at Laguna in general. It's really nice to drive there. Very competitive, even before the BOP was created. Looking at the statistics, in top 10, the biggest gainer is Dinarte, who is 7 positions up from where he started.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, the biggest gain is Kelvin Lau, who is 14 positions up from where he started. And then we have Mitchell, who is 10 positions up.
Go Doug. So still hanging out P20. He's got Arjun behind. Fire Queso behind Arjun in P22. So this is a pretty tight on-track battle for P20, 21, and 22. We've got Mitchell, Narasimhan, and Fire Queso. 27 minutes left on the clock. The Doug train has formed. Can Colin Dunham catch up and give him another caboose? We will wait and see. Gomer Wilson still right up behind that 488 Ferrari of Nixon. Before pit stops, he had P4. He wants it back. Navigating this tight and twisty Sector 1. Both cars looking really good through that fast, flat out right-hander into the braking zone for this left-hand kink. Both mounting the curbs quite nicely. Man, that Mustang just looks like it has a lot of gravity to it. It looks stable at all times. The Flamger show continues. We've got Tiago Dinarte. Lost a little bit of time. The gap is 0.7 of a second behind from Flamger to Dinarte. Andrew Rados, as predicted, has caught right back up to Dinarte. Jeff Spangler got dropped a bit. 1.294 seconds, the gap you see on screen between P9 and 10. There's... when you're driving in a tight pack like this, I feel like the gaps are pretty elastic. They come and they go, and it's hard to drop a driver if you've got 2 other relatively similarly paced drivers ahead of you.
Yeah, it's most of the major variations are just small mistakes, and they tend to kind of disappear within a few laps.
Yeah. So in the meantime, on that last lap, we've got Mr. Jeremy Mercer setting the purple lap so far of this race, a 143.037. All of these drivers in our top 10 absolutely flying. 143.2 the last lap from Dornell's, 143.3 from Marecki, 143.2 from Dan Cran. So yeah, these D1 drivers putting on an absolute show here at the Hungaroring.
So, kind of an important point is that I think Butkus is catching the Spangler, and Spangler is on significantly older tires, like 8.5 minutes, almost 9 minutes older tires. Butkus is obviously trying to gain anything he can, seeing his competition in top 3 for the positions and for the points. So yeah, that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was about the 43-minute mark where we saw Spangler pit. 20 minutes on those tires. You know, it gets to that point where as the fronts and the rears wear at different rates, maybe the balance of the car will change a little bit. Hoping to have that come back to him. These tires are supposedly good to last for over a 1 hour stint in an endurance race, so you wouldn't expect that 8 minutes to be too big a difference, you would hope. But yeah, that Leighton House Porsche of Joris Butkus looking to gain a little bit of time, a little bit of ground on P10, Jeff Spangler ahead. As always, got to give a love to everybody in the chat. We've seen Jess, we've seen Squashmonger, Diego finally piping up in the chat. How's it going, my friend? Yes, you should be P1. I don't see you out there, though. Maybe next week. How do you feel about a wet Laguna Seca? Gomer Wilson still right up behind that 488. Not able to make it past, but Nixon not able to drop him at all. 3/10 the gap on screen right now. Once again, up and over the crest into the braking zone of this long late apex right-hander. Gonna stay on board. Might as well get a bird's eye view of this chicane up and over the mountains there. Yeah, see, a little bit too far to the right from Gomer Wilson. Took a little bit too much of that pyramid. Upset the car a bit. Lost a couple tenths to Nixon ahead. Gonna have to try to crawl that back and keep the pressure on. His teammate Dan Cran waiting in the wings, just in case anybody makes a mistake. P5 and 6 though for the twin Mustangs, the Restrictor Victors. I think this might be their best result so far this season. Looking at my historical sheet, I had a P9 from Dan Cran at the Nürburgring, and P7 from Wilson at Barcelona. But that's kind of it for these guys.
Yeah, it's not necessarily super surprising. This track is not the power track to begin with, so the restrictor change is not going to affect the car quite as much, and it's not going to require quite as big of a change in driving to pull out the performance.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I'm watching a little bit too much of the LFM Pro series, but I think like at least the top 5 in that series are all driving the Mustang, and I don't know if it's the car, I don't know if it's just because they're the best of the best and it doesn't matter what car they're driving, but to see that much success for those guys compared to the limited participation and limited success of the Mustang in this series, I don't know. Maybe I was just expecting a little bit more out of these guys.
Well, I mean, it also depends on how much time you spend rebuilding your setups to fit the new BOP for the car and everything, because obviously it's going to be different with such a large change, and you're going to have to figure out, how do I drive this car fast? That is now different. Oh, that's a close fight.
This is a very close fight. So Butkus now has caught all the way up to Jeff Spangler, who has dropped far off of the back of Rados ahead. 2.4 seconds the gap, where it was once less than a second, and now Butkus looking to take advantage. They were side by side for a second coming through Sector 2. Spangler maintaining the position as they navigate this tight and twisty third sector. This would be the time. The Lexus has never been...
Side by side.
Nixon and Wilson side by side down the straight. Good call. I almost missed it. Gomer Wilson looking to take the place back from Nixon, and he almost does, wide though into the braking zone of turn 1, and Nixon, at least for now, will maintain P4. Gomer Wilson gonna take a look around the outside, but you gotta imagine with this long left-hander, Nixon will maintain the position. Couple of hot on-track battles. This is P4, 5, and 6 you see on your screen now. Nothing separating these drivers, and Butkus, he's been dropped a little bit, about a half a second between himself and Jeff Spangler ahead, but neither of these battles is over yet. Doug Mitchell 3 wide coming into turn 2. Nara Simhan and Queso, the Doug train, the legend of the Doug train lives on. And if he can keep these two drivers behind, wow, this is tight stuff. Nara Simhan wide, potential speed coupon used. P20, 21, and 22. You're looking at the battle on screen. Mitchell, Nara Simhan, Queso. It looks like things have settled down, but wow, that 3 wide moment going into turn 2. Anything could have happened, but Doug, the defensive master, maintaining the position, at least for now. Nara Simhan still looking to the inside there. That's not quite an overtaking zone. Maybe, I was about to say, the Lexus, not known for being super strong on the brakes, and as you mentioned, the Porsche being maybe one of the better cars on the brakes. Maybe if Nara Simhan can get in the toe and stay close enough, he could go for that big dive bomb into turn 1. I don't know.
Very close there between Queso and Arjun.
Yeah. So turn 1, Butkus not able to do it on this occasion. Spangler still maintaining P10. Looking back, coming out of that final turn, this would be the time to do it. Only 3/10 separating these two cars, but the Lexus is just, look at it. Where's the restrictor bop for the Lexus? Come on.
I would point out that Arjun has quite significant front damage in his car.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, wow.
I don't know how that has happened, but yeah, the bonnet is a little bit floppy.
Yeah, that cannot help the top end speed. Still hanging out P21 though, decent result. He can bring it home. Butkus still pretty close to Spangler. 4/10 the gap there. Same thing up ahead. We've got 4/10 the gap between Wilson and Nixon. Might just have to stay. Oh,
Contact.
that's fire Queso. Yellow flagged with Arjun. Gonna click the replay button real quick. So as Arjun goes wide through that flat out right-hander, fire Queso with the good drive. And just a little bit of speed coming up over the top. Braking zone into the long right-hander. Tries to go for the over-under. And Nara Simhan, you know, I can see the thought. I can see Fire Queso thinking that Arjun was going to go a little bit wide, maybe duck under him to the right, but the gap was not there. Now down to P25 and 26 for Fire Queso. Gomer Wilson. Contact between Nixon and Gomer Wilson, but Gomer Wilson finally taking that position back from the 488. I feel like I gotta click the replay button. So Nixon went defensive into turn 1. He had the advantage, but unable to put the power down. And into turn 2, the Mustang just able to pull up alongside with the ideal line on the inside, just making it look easy. Gomer Wilson back up into P4. Well done. Excellent racecraft from him. Spangler and Butkus, the battle continues. Half a second separating them. Denarte still right up behind Tim Flamger. Half a second there. Gotta give a little love to our race leader. It's been a lonely drive for Renato Dornelles. 5.5 seconds, still the gap between himself and Jeremy Mercer in P2. The gap between P2 and 3, 6.5 seconds. Well, about 6 seconds between Mercer and Marecki, our amazing silver driver. P3 still with the advantage over his silver competitor, Joris Butkus. This top 3 is just kind of out for a Sunday drive at this point. Just hot lap for life.
Yeah, there's no reason to take any risks when you have gaps like that.
So the Porsche and the Lexus, Butkus and Spangler. Yeah, you can see it there on the brakes. The Porsche drawing super close with the advantage in deceleration, but no real room to make any sort of overlap. Kind of just flying formation. 15 minutes left in this race. Not a whole lot of opportunities left for Joris Butkus to make this move happen. Got Denarte on Flamger. Dan Cran, the next Mustang, to try to take the position away from Nixon, who has actually done well to kind of stay tight up against Gomer Wilson. You know, he got overtaken, but he's not being dropped at all. Jordan Nixon looking pretty good. Still P5 in that 488 Ferrari. Relatively tight on-track battle. We've got Kelvin Lau, John Crown, and Brian Anderson. This is P17, 18, and 19 you see on your screen. Less than a second separating 3 drivers. All of them looking for a little bit more points. Kelvin Lau, the gold driver, ahead of Crown and Anderson, the silvers. Not particularly high up in the standings, but every point matters in this series.
All of these drivers pitted extremely early. Lau has been out on those tires for almost 40 minutes.
Wow.
Crown pitted 1 lap later, and Anderson has 10 minutes fresher tires.
Oh, so Anderson, the one with the tire advantage in this battle. 2 drivers to overtake, though. You hate to be the 3rd driver in the DRS train, which we don't have here, but I guess that's just a term that might be applicable in this situation. Looking ahead on the hood cam, the McLaren getting the slipstream off of the Lexus, and the BMW just even in the toe of the McLaren, not able to make any sort of ground up on the straight. Not sure how this battle will ever resolve itself. Kelvin Lau just leading a train at this point.
I will also point out that these overall standings with Mercer and Nixon in top 5 and the Lexus is so far behind is actually quite significant for the team championship. There's 2 Lexus teams leading the championship right now,
Right.
Blanchett Rados and Spangler Lau. Both of those are not gonna get any massive points from this, while Mercer and Nixon are in 3rd place for the team standings, and if they score these points over the Lexus teams, this could be quite significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So as it stands, the points gap in the team championship, 70 points between Blanchett and Rados and Mercer and Nixon. Yeah, this is absolutely something that they could make up in just this one race. Blanchett down in P16, unfortunately. Rados up in P9. Yeah, it's a good day for the Ferrari 488 team, the TSE team. Not sure what that stands for. Maybe we'll have to ask him if we get the opportunity to talk to Mercer after this race. Denarte still right up behind Flamger. Butkus still right up behind Spangler. And Durance, Wilson, and what is this battle? What am I looking at? We've got Durance from Simons, from Andrew Wilson. So this is P12, 13, and 14 on track. Another pretty tight group. Less than a second. Andrew Wilson potentially using one of his speed tokens right there. 11 minutes left in this race. You got to keep it on track. Nobody wants to see an 11th hour drive-through like we had for Dan Cran, either last race or the race before. John Crown still right up behind Lau. Check it in with Doug. We saw Queso and Narasimhan kind of a little bump on each other, so Doug been able to drive a relatively lonely race since then. Colin Dunham, though, catching up a little bit. He's got LeMay and Carpenter and Moffitt right behind him, so the Doug train has a chance to reform. Wilson within a tenth now of Simons, who has to go defensive into this right-hander. And yeah, just even with the not ideal line, Simons just looking strong there. I don't know how this overtake would ever happen with these similar cars. You know, back in my day when I was racing in, D5, D3, you could count on the driver ahead to eventually make a mistake. You put a little bit of pressure on him, you do the Valentino Rossi routine, and you don't necessarily go for the dive bomb, but you let him know that I'm here and I could do it at any moment. And oftentimes they'll make a mistake. These D1 drivers, they're kind of inflappable right now.
So also Mercer finishing P2 in this race would be significant for the D1 Gold Drivers' Championship standings, because currently he is in either second or fourth position, depending on whether you count the drop round or not.
Yeah, drop points included.
Is not scoring very high.
So drop points included, Mercer is 43 points behind Dinarte, P1. That's 380 points versus 337 points. So Mercer would be scoring about 100 here. Dinarte, P8. Was that 70 to 60 points? So yeah, he wouldn't quite have enough to overtake, I believe, but he would definitely close that gap up substantially to P1, Thiago Dinarte. Dinarte getting actually dropped a bit by Tim Flamger. The gap about a second behind that Audi. He's hanging on. I like this Tim Flamger guy. He's in a crazy car. Not many people drive the Audi anymore, but he's doing it well, making it look good here at the Hungaroring.
It's even more impressive because the Audi is not known to be very good on tire wear, yet the car behind is one of the best cars when it comes to that. So being able to hang on for this long it's a good drive.
Timing wise, was Flamger a later stop, an earlier stop?
Flamger has 1 lap fresher tires, I believe.
Okay, so not too huge a difference. Yeah. But yeah, the gap now about a second still. The Bentley behind, losing a little bit of time. Lots of curb there through the chicane. 1.2 seconds the gap now in race control. Flamger doing well, staying strong towards the end of this race. But
It is also possible that Dinarte is on his final track cut warning. I've seen him have many invalid laps, so I don't know what the situation is, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's having to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, if you see yourself going a little wide and you can't afford another track cut, you just got to lift, and maybe that's where the loss of pace is coming from. Wilson still right up behind Simons. This tight second to last turn. Right up on the tail of his fellow McLaren driver. Both cars getting the power down pretty well. Staying just about within track limits, crossing the line here. Simons, he comes back to the racing line, but he's been going defensive a lot in these instances. Feeling the pressure from Wilson behind. Dan Cran still putting the pressure on Jordan Nixon, who has been well and truly dropped from Gomer Wilson. The gap from P4 to P5 now 3.4 seconds. So Wilson running away with this one a little bit, and Dan Cran looking to do the same. He'll have to go back and check the replay himself. How did Gomer Wilson get ahead of Nixon? Can he make the same type of move? Gotta put the pressure on. Gotta see if you can make him go a little bit wide into turn 1 again. This is Crown on Kelvin Lau. Super tight battle on track with Brian Anderson behind. That Lexus doing just about everything it needs to maintain this P17 position. But that McLaren and that BMW looking anxious to get this move happening. Coming now onto the main straight, Butkus right up behind Spangler, who is on those much older tires. He pitted with about 43 minutes left on the clock, so 40-minute-old tires for the Lexus ahead, but with the horsepower advantage, will have just about enough space to maintain the lead here into turn 1. With the pro-ish sticker right there on the bumper. Or actually, he's our two-time defending champion, Jeff Spangler, not having as much success in the Lexus this season, but in this race at least, doing well to fight off the Porsche of Butkus behind. Dan Cran still right on Nixon. He's not going to have many opportunities left, so we've got Dornell's here navigating now sector 3 with 4 minutes left on the clock. I'm thinking 3 laps left in this race, this one plus 3. Not many opportunities left now for Dan Cran, for Jorintis Butkus, for Max Simons to make any sort of overtake happen, get those little bit of extra points they need in their championship battles. You know, this is a kind of a stock ACC livery, nothing custom about it, but it's still, you know, that shade of purple with that metallic sheen on it. I think this is a fantastic looking car. Renato Dornell's Vacuum Racing, #1 in this race. 7.2 seconds now, the gap between himself and Jeremy Mercer in the TSE 488 Ferrari. Just kind of a simple race for these guys. P1, 2, 3, just out here in hot lap mode. I relate to it. Hot lap for life as far as I'm concerned. I'm definitely not as good a race driver as I am a hot lap driver. Jordan Nixon keeping it nice and tight through that flat out right-hander. Up and over the curbing at the top of the crest. This battle continues on. Dan Cran just looking like he's enjoying the view. It's a good looking car, and Dan Cran knows all about what the backside of this 488 Ferrari looks like. Lots of curb there on the left hand, a little bit of grass there for Jordan Nixon. Gotta worry about the pressure drop in that right rear tire. But with Dornell's coming around the final turn, 2 minutes left on the clock, 2 laps left in this race. These drivers just need to bring it home. Butkus right up on Spangler. These guys are gonna fight till the end, it's looking like. Butkus looking to the inside as we come into this right-hander, but not enough of an overlap to attempt to move. Maybe just letting Spangler know, hey, I'm still here, I'm still a threat. I am not giving up on these points that easily. Every position matters. He is fighting for the overall silver championship. Joris Butkus looking hungry here. 2 laps left on the board. God, that Lexus is too strong though. I know you're a Lexus driver, Ilpo, but I can't stop saying it. I got destroyed by the Lexus last season, and I'm having flashbacks right now of just this car just driving away from me on a straight.
Yeah, but that's the only thing it's good at.
You know.
Looking at the qualifying times, the fastest Lexus was almost 6/10 off in the middle sector of the track.
Pit window is now closed.
I mean, I had to deal with guys like Douglas Mitchell. And, ooh, a little wide there from Butkus. That would have been a track cut. It looks like he had to drop well off the throttle, losing a little bit of time to Spangler. But yeah, so some of these guys, as Dan Cran is... Whoa! That's not the line through that chicane. Dan Cran well over the inside. That's going to be a track cut for him, hopefully not a warning. Renato Dornelles, does he slow? No, of course he's not going to slow. It's 20 seconds. It wouldn't matter anyways. Going to do one more lap here. Renato Dornelles crossing the line. One more lap. White flag waving for Renato Dornelles. 8 seconds the gap between himself and Jeremy Mercer. One more time. Bring it on home. Round 5. Hungaroring is waiting. So Dornelles, he qualified P2. He took the lead just immediately from Jeremy Mercer off of the start. We'll have to maybe ask Mercer about that start if we can get him into the commentator's booth at race end. But yeah, despite starting on pole position, really just never had a chance in this race. Dornelles dominant from the first corner to the last. As the sun sets 6 p.m. on this race, the Brazilian driver just nice and safe, no need for any risk through that chicane the final time. Looking down the track, Dan Cran a bit wide there over the kink, looking like he's not going to be able to get this position. Butkus has dropped well and truly back from Jeff Spangler, 1.2 seconds the gap. The Durrance, Simons, and Wilson battle unchanged. The Lau, Crown, and Anderson battle unchanged. Doug Mitchell, he inherited a new train. Colin Dunham was able to catch back up, so the Doug train is well and truly back on track. But Renato Dornelles, P1, the winner of round 5 here at the Hungaroring. Congratulations to him. Jeremy Mercer taking it home, P2 for him. Eric Marecki, the silver driver, on the podium. A fantastic result for him, which will be huge in the championship. Gomer Wilson crossing the line, P4. Jordan Nixon able to hang on to P5 ahead of Dan Cran. Tim Flamger in the Audi P7. You love to see it. Just ahead of Thiago Dunarte, one of our biggest movers and groovers. Started P15 in this race. He will lose a little bit of the championship lead. Expecting him to maintain P1 in the overall, but P8 not the result he was expecting. From Rados, from Spangler, from Butkus, Durant, Simons, Wilson, Manperson. How will... Oh, the Doug train. He got overtaken by Dunham on the final lap, so well done. Colin Dunham now P20, ahead of Douglas Mitchell, who is himself ahead of LeMay, Carpenter, Moffitt, and Fire Queso, who we saw had a little bit of an incident with Narasimhan in the early stages. But it is about that time, ladies and gentlemen. If I can kick us over to the intermission scene. We're gonna wait for our D1 race chat to populate. See if we can grab, I'm looking for Wilson, Marecki, Mercer will be one of the people that we look to steal. We'll give them a minute. So looking at the schedule, we've mentioned it a couple of times. So next week, same bat time, same bat channel, Laguna Seca in mixed conditions. Should be an interesting race, a bit of a processional historically. Laguna Seca, not a whole lot of great overtaking opportunities, so qualifying, perhaps more than ever, will be very important for these drivers. But yeah, go ahead.
So I would say most people haven't really driven that track very much in the wet conditions. I have. And I promise you, there are some interesting surprises as into where the puddles and the minor rivers across the track are. So maybe not in D1, but in the other divisions, I would not be surprised if there are many overtaking opportunities from people going on excursions outside of the track.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so obviously last time out at Donington Park, it was a mixed condition race, but it wasn't the wettest. I mean, obviously everybody saw it. The visible spray on stream just wasn't there because there was no spray. It was a pretty fast track, hoping for a little bit more of a downpour. Laguna Seca. In the meantime, though, we have Mr. Jeremy Mercer, who I am going to attempt to drag up into commentator's booth. Mr. Mercer, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the booth. Congratulations on your race. After a fantastic qualifying, how did you feel going into that race? And kind of walk me through what happened lap 1, turn 1.
Yeah, so I felt really good about the qualifying because, can't do better than pole, and that was my personal best. So that was good. However, I had already known that McLaren is really good on starts, so if he was in P2, I would have trouble. And so I was really hoping he wouldn't put in his past Gomer at the end of qualifying. But once that happened, I was hoping I'd still be in P1 into turn 1, but I wasn't expecting it. McLaren's just really fast right off the go. So.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if it was anything like, if you were a little behind in your box, if he was a little ahead in his box. It almost looked like from the time the green flag waved, you were almost already side by side.
Yeah, I wasn't really focusing too hard on being absolutely optimal. One of my hopes was that maybe if he cleared me sooner, I'd be able to get to the outside, because I had this experience in the practice race since it was the exact same grid between us. And he, as soon as he cleared me, went to the inside, and I was afraid if he did that too late, I would be unable to get to the outside and then be forced to brake behind him and then maybe lose another spot. And so I kind of wanted to be able to slot out to the outside and maybe go for a pass around the outside, but that definitely didn't work.
Okay. And I mean, so overall for your team, I know your teammate Jordan Nixon finished P4.
He ended up dropping back to P5.
P5, that's right. Gomer Wilson
really
got him.
So.
Yeah, no, so a great team for the 488. The car just looked pretty strong overall at this track.
Yeah, it's been really strong all season. I can't really complain other than when driving against Lexuses when you just don't have the speed, but that's its own thing.
Yeah, so...
but overall, I just have to give some respect for Dornelis. He was, through the race, consistently faster than me, I think, most of the time.
So looking ahead to next week, we got Laguna Seca, we got another wet race. I mean, are you putting in full effort to this preparation? How are you looking? We were talking a little bit earlier, the standings now, because of Denarte's less than ideal result. I think he finished P8. You'll gain a little bit in the championship on him. How are we looking for the rest of the season, and specifically next week at Laguna?
I've seen that the season's very close, and I knew that there was a lot of people who often put in really good performances, but often, I knew the Lexus wasn't good here, so I was expecting to gain on some of those drivers, as well as, and apparently the Bentley as well. For Laguna, I guess I can only really focus on my own race, and I don't really know how everything stacks up just yet, so just make sure I'm ready for all the possible conditions, and I'll probably hope it's wet, because I tend to perform slightly better when it's wet.
Yep, I think we feel the same way. As wet as possible. Ilpo, you wanna add anything before we let this guy go?
I'm kind of curious. You didn't even try to go for significantly different pit strategy than Donnell's. You think there was no chance?
He was 4 or 5 seconds ahead of me, So the chance there was just if he, missed his box or something, and I wasn't really betting on that. So I was just waiting because, the car's just overall lap time or overall race pace is expected to be better if you pit closer to the middle of the race. The only reason to pit earlier is if you think you can either pass people or you need to defend against people, and neither was a concern, so I just put it a little later to pit.
That makes sense.
All right. So any final thank yous or shout outs before we let you go?
Yeah, Jordan. It's a great team result, and good to have him back in the season.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for your time. We're going to send you right on back. Looking for our top silver driver, and I see him here, Mr. Eric Marecki, going to do a quick grab. Eric Marecki, welcome to the booth. Do you have us, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, all right. So, top silver driver on the podium, P3 overall, a fantastic result. I mean, congratulations to you, man. How did it feel?
Oh, I was nervous. This has been the best finish I've probably ever had in any season. And the last time, well, I guess it was 2 times ago at this track when I was still in D2, I crashed out of the lead.
Oh.
So every time I got to turn 5, I was nervous I was going to jump that curve and spin it around backwards. But I put it in TC2 and then just tried not to ruin the tires. And luckily I had clean air. I didn't have to fight anybody, so I could, turn off the deltas and then just drive. And that's what I've always been pretty good at. I start to struggle when people are around me, focusing on other cars instead of driving, and having clean air and nobody behind me, I could just drive.
Yeah, so qualifying P4, you got past Gomer Wilson early, and yeah, you were able to drop him pretty early, and it looked like just a kind of a casual hot lap session for you.
Yeah, I usually struggle in qualifying. I'll put in some good hot laps on the board, and then we get to qualifying, and I'm usually half a second off the pace. But this time I somehow pulled it together. Didn't get hit in turn 1 like the last 2 seasons, and it just worked out. I mean, this is definitely going to go in the race to remember, at least for me.
Nice. So looking ahead to the rest of the season, we got 3 rounds left. It's looking like going into the next race, you'll have the overall silver lead. Jurentis had, I think, a P10 or 11 result, so a big points gain for you overall. I mean, how are you feeling going forward, and specifically next week, a potentially wet Laguna Seca?
Well, I've always felt pretty good in the wet, but I haven't really driven Laguna Seca a whole lot, so that'll take some getting used to. And as far as standings go, I don't even bother looking at them until the end.
Nice.
If I start focusing on another thing, it's just something else that will be on my mind.
Well said. Well said. All right, so we won't hold you too long. I mean, you got any final shout outs or thank yous for the team?
Yeah, I'll shout out all the Madhouse boys. I know a couple of them had some pretty tough races, some crashes, some disconnects, but there's always next week, and I'm sure they'll be up there at the front. And thank you to all you guys for being able to put the show on for us.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll let you get back to the race review.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so with that said and with that done, I think that's about all I got. Ilpo, have I missed anything? What do we need to cover before we close out this stream?
I mean, this was interesting because championship standings are gonna change a lot, and I think that's gonna make the rest of the season also more interesting, because it looked like there might be some runaway winners, but now it doesn't look like that way at all.
Yep. So Thiago Denarte will lose a little bit of his lead to Jeremy Mercer, perhaps not the whole thing. Renato Dornelles will make a huge jump. He was 57 behind, now it'll be, maybe 20-ish points behind. So yeah, 3 races to go. Everything still to play for. Thank you all for hanging out in the chat and in the YouTube VODs, which Jess Osborne will graciously stitch together. Apologies once again for the connection. It won't happen next week, I promise. As I said, it will be next Tuesday, the 19th, same time, whatever your local time for race start is. We will see you then. Until next week, this is it. Signing out.